Hi there, YouTube. Drukdane back here with a monster stat block twisting. How to configure one monster into something else. Let's get into it. Alright. As you can see on screen, we have a monster stat block here. The Inquisitor of the Firemind. This is from Ben Richter's guide. And as you can see pictured, I'll blow it up a little bit here. It is a wizardly fella with a halo of fire. Very cool and interesting. Wearing a breastplate, giving 16 armor class, 77 hit points. You can see the combat stats are not very high because they are an intellect of sorts. Intelligence, wisdom, charisma. Proficiency in the saves, can't be charmed or feared, has true sight, and telepathy. Very cool. It has a multi-attack, 2 attacks with a silvered sword, or uses its mind fire twice. The silvered sword is longsword stats that seems to be using its charisma modifier bonus. As you can see, the strength and the dex are not that high, but it's got a +7 on the proficiency bonus. So it has to be using charisma for battle. D8 +4 or D10 +4, and then also does 4d8 force damage on top of the hit. The mind fire, this is where it starts to get a little spicy. The Inquisitor can target one creature it can see within 120 feet. The target must succeed in 15 DC intellect save, or take 3d8 +4 psychic damage and is stunned until the start of the Inquisitor's next turn. So it gets to use 2 of these stunning strikes. It is save or suck, so no half damage on a pass, but intelligence save is not usually something that lots of players focus on, so that's kind of neat. It also has innate spell casting psionics, which requires no components when using these spells. So these are just mental spells, or mental attacks that take spell effect forms. Arcane Eye, calm emotions, detect magic, detect thoughts, dispel magic, sending suggestion, all at will, and then 1 mass suggestion, 1 modify memory. As well as recharge ability, Inquisitor's Command, recharging on a 5 or 6. Each creature of the Inquisitor's choice can see within 60 feet, must make a DC 15 wisdom saving throw or be charmed until the start of the Inquisitor's next turn. On the charmed creature's next turn, the Inquisitor can telepathically control the target's movements, action, or both. When controlled in this way, the target can only take the attack action, the Inquisitor chooses the target, or the dash action. So very, very powerful CC kit. He looks like he's going to be a lot of fun to play. You can basically mind blast all the party members and then make them fight each other. You have some stunning capabilities, but just be careful with this if you are picking on one person to make sure that they're still able to have turns. What if I didn't want it just to be a regular dude? What if I didn't want it to be a human? The human with a sword that has brain powers. But maybe I don't want to run a human. I want to run some kind of monster. Maybe I want to run this monster. This is art from Minze, which is the 100 Monster Project on DeviantArt. I'm just sampling this picture because I thought it was really cool. Links are in the description if you want to check it out. What if I wanted to use this guy? He's not a human with a sword, though. The art also doesn't really indicate that he has any psychic powers. But I could come up with a story about how this creature came to get those abilities, or maybe generate a bit of a backstory for this gentleman here, and use that stat block instead, which is exactly what I've done. All right, now we're in Roll20. You can see our Inquisitor of the Firemind here. We have him just in a nice K format. As you can see, all of his stats are here. His multi-attack, the longsword, the mind fire, innate spell casting for psionics, all the spells that are here. Perfect. 77 hit points with the 16 armor class, all that good stuff. So how do we take this man and make it into this monster? Well, I've done it like this. More so, it's given me a whole encounter now at this point. So, this is the Firemind Inquisitor. Inquisitor of the Mind Fire. Firemind Inquisitor. Haha! Now, you can get a little more creative with the naming convention. I just wanted to do something simple because it's just an easy showcase here. So the Firemind Inquisitor, which is our large boy here, has 16 armor class as natural armor. So we're keeping the same armor class value. We're just switching it from a breastplate to natural. A little bit more hit points. And the main thing that changed here with the hit points, if I put them side by side, you can see it's from a 77 to a 91. I moved his size class. So instead of a medium human, it's a large aberration. So being large, it's D8 hit dice. The 14 hit die from D8 go up to a D10. And that's where the change in hit points came from. So a little bit hardier being the monster, but I left the actual ability scores the same. Same with the sight ranges, the visions, all of that goodness. And all the spells are exactly the same as well. Now, for the description, I didn't have to change a lot because I'm still calling him an Inquisitor, the Inquisitor of sorts. So the Inquisitor has 2 attacks. I've changed the longsword to the limb because it has those very long sort of front forelimbs. The longsword's turned into a limb, and I just took away the option to use 2 hands. So instead of doing a d10 damage, if I use 2 hands, I'm just committing to a 1d8 plus 4d8. The Mindfire is exactly the same, and the command is exactly the same. So the only thing that changed is Statblock base is we took it from being a dude and made it a monster. We upscaled its size by 1 size, so we changed its hit die. We could have done some more changes to it, like because it's a monster, maybe it has different, attacking scores. But for this one, I just wanted to keep it very, very simple. And basically, if anybody asks, oh, well, what crazy monster was this? Then I can just say, hey, look at the Inquisitor. The Inquisitor of the Firemind. But because we had transformed this into a monster, it would make sense that there would be little monsters of this version. So what I ended up doing is I made the Mindfire drone. And if we compare it side by side to the Mindfire Inquisitor, this is a challenge rating 8 version, this is a challenge rating 1 version. So some of its stats got downscaled. I made it a beast of sorts, so its intelligence significantly dropped. Its wisdom dropped by 4 points, and its charisma dropped by 3 points. So its wisdom went down to a +1, and its charisma up to a +3. So the way that I thought about these monsters is they were always an empathic creature. They had some psionic abilities, keeping a 30-foot telepathy range and the 10-foot true sight. And then this got bumped up with the Inquisitor. It does maintain a bit of the psionic spellcastings, but only keeping calm emotions, detect thoughts, and suggestion. I took away the Mindfire ability in the Inquisitor's command because those are unique to this monster, but I used the limb, keeping it at a +5, and it does a d6 +3 of the slashing damage, and then 1d6 of the force damage. So one thing you want to do when you're changing anything significantly in the challenge ratings, you want to look at other CR creatures of the same CR. So I went and looked at. It has 2 attacks and basically does 2d6 +3. I went and looked at a brown bear, for example. So it's a little bit more potent than the brown bear. A little bit higher armor class, just about the same hit point. So I feel like this isn't completely overpowered. It is in the maybe could be considered CR2, but CR1 is close enough for me. CR is just really a guessing game anyway. So now I have this whole encounter where these drones could be encountering the party ahead of time. If I wanted to have minions to go along with my Inquisitor, I now have drones that can go along with it. It also gives me now a story element that I could go along with these types of creatures. So essentially, what I was thinking of is this could be a situation where these drones were living in this cave naturally, innately. They have a little bit of that empathic ability where they're able to communicate simple ideas with their limited intelligence to their creatures nearby. So you could change this into something like the limited telepathy from the pseudo dragon, if you wanted to use that text instead. But basically, they're able to transmit simple ideas. They are a little sort of misshapen and gangly, so they are not the most effective fighters. But with their long limbs, they have a bit of a whipping motion, which is the cause for the force damage. The way that the story goes, or what may involve the characters, is that these creatures seem to be now aggressive to town members nearby, or maybe causing havoc with their mental abilities to nearby towns. Come to find out that there is a leader now. These drones have a matron of sorts, and the town wants you to figure it out. And the secret behind this is it was actually wizardly experimentations that fused this inquisitor, this race of beings, maybe advanced them through alchemy, or fused them with a wizard itself, maybe a subject of sorts. And now the pain and the suffering is tormenting the inquisitor, or the inquisitor still has memories from its past life and wants to stop the wizard from doing further experiments. It can be any number of things, whatever kind of suits the narrative that you're trying to go for, but this is how you can take, a simple stat block, maybe something from another campaign, or not wanting to use a named character, like this Inquisitor of the Firemind, deeply rooted in Baravia. If it doesn't fit into your campaign, here's a way that you can take a man and turn it into a monster, or a monster into a person. You can always change the way that certain things are described, like changing swords into limbs. This is one good way that if you do have players that have been experienced a lot of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and you don't want to homebrew your characters as a whole, you can just reflavor them. Maybe they've played Van Richters very thoroughly, and you still want to use some of those elements. They might learn about those abilities when they come through, but if you disguise them a little better than I have, re-changing the names and flavoring them a little bit differently, it could catch a veteran player off guard. Just simply, oh, I didn't realize that was a Displacer Beast. Just taking bits and pieces of those monsters and modifying them slightly. So in essence, we're running the Firemind Inquisitor, but he's just a large size. And that's the only difference in the stat block between these two. And now it's generated a whole adventure, or an encounter, possibly. What do you guys think? Is it just simple? Is everybody doing this already? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. You have a great night.